The courtroom was humming with routine, shuffling papers, tapping pens, the low murmur of legal formality, until he spoke. 3 small words from a trembling voice, and the entire room stopped breathing. A 12-year-old boy, rail-thin, eyes like open wounds, stood from his chair. His oversized hoodie hung off his shoulders like a cloak meant to hide him from the world. And yet now, all eyes were on him. I remember everything. The judge, stunned, froze mid-sentence. The prosecutor turned. The gallery held its breath. No one had asked him to speak. No one expected him to. He had sat quietly for over an hour, expression blank, hands folded in his lap, barely more than a shadow in the back of the courtroom. But now he was standing, voice cracking, holding nothing but a battered sketchbook and a storm behind his ribs. This was supposed to be a routine hearing, just a check-in. No press, no drama. The judge had barely glanced at the boy's case file. Another foster placement. Another troubled kid. Another shuffle in the system. But when those 3 words cut through the quiet, everything changed. Because those weren't just words. They were evidence. They were accusation. They were a child finally breaking under the weight of silence. The courtroom didn't know what to do. Not the bailiff, not the attorneys, not even the judge, whose gavel hung limp in her hand. And yet the boy kept speaking. They hurt me. The ones you said were my family. They lied to you. He wasn't shouting. He didn't cry. But his voice? His voice was louder than any scream. One teacher rose from the gallery, tears already in her eyes. A social worker stood frozen, heart thudding in her ears. The foster parents? They turned pale. One of them clutched the table like it might save them from sinking. But it was too late. This boy, this quiet, forgotten boy, had just turned the system inside out, and by the time he sat down again, still shaking, nothing in that courtroom would ever be the same. Charlie didn't look like a kid who'd shake a courtroom. He was the kind of boy people looked past. Thin. Quiet. Hoodie always zipped high like he was trying to disappear into it. He walked with his head low, his steps barely making sound. But if you looked closer, there were bruises. Not the scraped knees kind, not the I fell off my bike kind. They wrapped around his wrists like fingerprints left behind. They peeked from beneath his sleeves, purple and yellow, the shape of someone else's anger. Mr. Evans saw them first. It was a Tuesday. Charlie had reached up to grab a pencil, and his sleeve slipped just an inch. That inch told a whole story. Later that day, the janitor, Mr. Reynolds, caught Charlie lingering by the supply closet after school. "Everything okay, son?" Charlie's eyes darted down the hallway. "Can I stay here tonight?" he whispered. Not a joke, not teenage drama, a plea. "I don't want to go home." That night, Mr. Reynolds didn't sleep well. Neither did Mr. Evans. Or Miss Turner. Because something wasn't adding up. Charlie never smiled. He barely ate. When another student slammed a locker, Charlie had flinched so hard he dropped his backpack. He wasn't just shy, he was scared. Like, bone-deep scared. When social worker Naomi Dawson visited, Charlie sat across from her in the counselor's office. Small. Still. Silent. "Charlie, your teachers are worried. Can you tell me about the bruises?" He didn't lift his head. "I fell," he muttered. "Where?" "Home." Miss Dawson had been doing this job long enough to recognize the signs. She saw the tremor in his fingers, the way he swallowed hard between words, how he never looked her in the eye. He wasn't lying. Not exactly. But he wasn't free to tell the truth either. At the Pearson home, Mark and Linda, everything looked perfect. Fresh flowers on the table, matching picture frames, smiles like plastic. But when Naomi reached to shake Linda's hand, she saw Charlie twitch. And when she asked a question, Linda answered for him. Every time. Naomi left the house with a pit in her stomach. Something was very wrong. But without Charlie's voice, the system would stay blind. So the teachers watched. The janitor watched. And day by day, the silence around Charlie grew louder, until it was unbearable, until he couldn't take it anymore, until he stood in that courtroom and shattered everything. After Naomi Dawson's visit, Ridgewood Middle tried to go back to normal, but for Charlie, normal didn't exist. Each morning he showed up soaked in silence, eyes sunken, lips tight, shoulders curled inward like he was bracing for another blow. His classmates laughed, shouted, ran through the halls. Charlie moved like a shadow among them. Miss Turner saw it. Mr. Evans felt it. Mr. Reynolds never stopped thinking about that night, when Charlie asked to sleep at school like it was the safest place in the world. So they did what teachers and janitors and social workers are told to do. They filed reports, logged concerns, called in favors. But the system? It nodded politely and stalled. Naomi opened a case file. She marked it priority. She scheduled a home check. The Pearsons smiled wide. Their kitchen smelled like cinnamon and lies. Charlie stood in the corner the entire time, like a decoration they hadn't decided where to put yet. "Tell Miss Dawson how much you love it here," Linda prompted, her hand resting too tight on his shoulder. "Yes, ma'am," Charlie muttered. Mark folded his arms, just watched. After the visit, Naomi told Mr. Evans quietly, "He's scared. But I need more than instincts. I need evidence." Evidence? Like the bruises they kept documenting? Like the way he flinched from a raised voice? Like the way he never said goodbye? Only, "see you," as if he wasn't sure he would. Still, the file stayed open. Still, Charlie went home. Until one rainy morning, he limped into class. The bruises now reached his neck. His walk was stiff, pain in every step. Miss Turner's hands shook when she poured her coffee that day. Mr. Evans had to take a minute in the hallway just to keep it together. Enough was enough. Mr. Evans pulled Charlie aside at lunch, kneeling so their eyes were level. "You don't have to keep this in anymore," he whispered. Charlie blinked. Then, in a voice no louder than the scrape of a pencil, he said, "They hurt me." Just 3 words, but they cracked the sky open. Mr. Evans didn't wait. He called Naomi immediately. Child Protective Services filed for emergency removal. Charlie was pulled from the Pearson home before the sun set that evening. Mark yelled. Linda wept, not for the boy, but for the mask slipping from her face. Charlie packed what little he had into a plastic bag, and just like that, he was in the system again. Not rescued, just relocated. And the system? It moved like a glacier. Slow, indifferent, cold. Charlie didn't feel saved. He felt dropped. The shelter smelled like bleach and leftover tears. Charlie didn't unpack. He didn't speak. He just curled into the bottom bunk and stared at the chipped paint on the wall. The staff tried, but they were overworked, underpaid. And to the system, he was case 04621 ALB. Not a scared boy with healing ribs and silent screams. After 3 nights without sleep, Charlie made a decision. Run! He slipped out a side door during dinner. A drizzle coated the streets. Cold. Gray. His too thin jacket soaked through in minutes. He didn't know where he was going. Just away. At a deserted bus stop, he curled into himself, knees hugged to chest. Praying no one would see him. Praying someone would. And then, fate did something rare. It showed up in a beat-up Toyota. Mr. Evans was on his way to get coffee. He nearly dropped his keys when he spotted the boy. Soaked, shivering, hollow-eyed. "Charlie?" Charlie didn't answer. He just collapsed into his teacher's arms. They sat in the car for a long time, heater on, silence thick. Mr. Evans handed him a granola bar and an old hoodie from the back seat. "You're safe now," he said. But Charlie didn't look safe. He looked lost. At the shelter, the staff was in a frenzy. Naomi Dawson arrived in under an hour. They called it a serious breach. They wrote reports, held meetings. But Charlie, he just looked at Mr. Evans and whispered, "Don't make me go back there." That night, something shifted. Mr. Evans didn't just feel responsible. He was responsible. So he did something no one expected. "I want to foster him." The room went quiet. Naomi blinked. "You, what?" "I have a spare room. I see him every day. I care about him. Isn't that what matters?" After 3 emergency calls, background checks, and forms that never seemed to end, they approved it. Temporary placement, pending full review. When Charlie stepped into Mr. Evans's modest house, bookshelves, warm lighting, a faint smell of coffee, he didn't say much. But when he saw the desk in the guest room, with a new sketchbook and colored pencils laid out, he froze. "You got these for me?" Mr. Evans just smiled. "Thought you might like 'em." That night, Charlie didn't cry himself to sleep. He didn't wake screaming. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, clutching the sketchbook to his chest. And for the first time in years, he dared to dream that maybe, just maybe, someone might actually want him to stay. Weeks passed. Charlie stayed. The house got quieter, not from silence, but from calm. He started sleeping through the night. He laughed, once, at Olivia's terrible knock-knock joke, and he drew pages of shadowy figures and bright windows. But the courtroom loomed like a storm on the horizon. The Pearsons had hired a lawyer, a good one. He claimed Charlie was troubled, that the bruises came from roughhousing, that Mr. Evans and the school interfered based on assumptions. Miss Turner gave her testimony. Mr. Reynolds did too. They told the court what they'd seen. The fear, the bruises, the boy who begged to sleep at school. But it wasn't enough. The judge leaned forward. "We need direct testimony from the minor." Charlie went pale. In the hallway, Naomi crouched beside him. "You don't have to be perfect," she said. "You just have to be true." Inside the courtroom, the air was tense. Charlie sat in the witness box, drowning in his borrowed shirt and nerves. The Pearson lawyer stood. "Charlie, you've been in multiple homes, isn't that correct?" "Yes." Soft, barely audible. "And sometimes, when things don't go your way, you act out?" Charlie hesitated. He looked at Mr. Evans, who gave a small, steady nod. "No," Charlie said. "I act scared because I am." The lawyer frowned. "You've claimed these people hurt you. But there's no video. No witnesses. Just your word. So I ask again. How can you prove it?" Charlie's throat closed. He looked down, at his trembling hands, at the faint scar on his wrist. He could have stayed quiet, could have let the adults argue over his fate. But then, he looked up, right at the Pearsons, and with a voice stronger than anyone expected, he said, "They hit me." 4 words, that's all. But they cracked the room open like thunder. "I was scared to tell," he continued, voice shaking, "because they said no one would believe me." The judge leaned forward. No one spoke. Even Linda Pearson's fake tears stopped. "They locked me in a closet," Charlie whispered. "Told me monsters would eat me if I cried." His voice cracked, but he kept going. "They said if I told, I'd never have a family, that I'd be alone forever." A tear slid down his cheek, and then another. Miss Turner dabbed her eyes. Mr. Evans sat frozen. Olivia clenched her fists under the bench. The room was silent, but the truth wasn't. It was loud, clear, undeniable, and for the first time, Charlie's voice was the one everyone listened to. After Charlie's testimony, something in the courtroom shifted. The judge called for recess. The Pearsons' lawyer tried to recover, stammered something about emotional manipulation and child confusion, but no one was buying it. Not anymore. Outside the courtroom, Charlie collapsed into Mr. Evans's arms. "I did it," he whispered. "You did more than that," Mr. Evans said. "You told the truth. That's everything." Inside, Naomi Dawson gathered her files and fire. She'd been in family courtrooms for over a decade, but this was the first time she saw a child crack the entire case open with 4 words. When they reconvened, the judge's tone was different, sharper, leaning forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Pearson," she said, "I've heard enough. Miss Turner's written reports, Mr. Reynolds's statements, Mr. Evans's account, and now Charlie's truth." She placed her reading glasses on the bench. "Effective immediately. Charles Freeman shall remain in the custody of Mr. Daniel Evans as his emergency foster guardian, pending permanent placement." Gasps in the gallery. Mark Pearson's face twisted, not with guilt, but fury. His hands balled into fists. Linda began weeping, but no one rushed to comfort her. "And furthermore," the judge continued, "based on the severity of the allegations and the credible nature of the child's testimony, I am authorizing a full investigation into Mr. and Mrs. Pearson's history with the foster system." Naomi leaned forward, slid a folder across the table. Inside, years of reports, red flags ignored, financial records showing they collected thousands per month fostering kids they never cared for. "Your Honor," Naomi said, "we suspect they've been rotating through vulnerable children for profit, taking stipends, isolating the kids, then discarding them once they act difficult." The judge's gavel hit the bench like thunder. "I want law enforcement involved. Today." That same afternoon, the Pearsons were detained. Not arrested. Yet. But under investigation for child endangerment, abuse, and potentially fraud. Their lawyer tried to protest. "No charges have been filed," to which the judge simply replied, "Not yet." At school, the word spread quickly. Not the details, only the whispers. Charlie stood up. Charlie told the truth. Even the loud kids in the hallway gave him space. Respect. Olivia didn't say anything dramatic. Just walked beside him, shoulder to shoulder, like she always did. But when no one was looking, she gave his hand a quick, fierce squeeze. Later that night, in the safety of Mr. Evans' living room, Charlie asked the question that had haunted him for months. "Do you think they'll go to jail?" Mr. Evans didn't sugarcoat it. "If the truth keeps coming out like this, yes. And they'll never hurt another kid again." Charlie looked down, fidgeted with his sleeves. "I hope they do," he said quietly. "But not just because of me. For the others too. The ones who didn't get to tell." Mr. Evans leaned in, pride in his eyes. "They will. Because of you." The trial wrapped up 2 weeks later. What began as a custody case had spiraled into a full-blown criminal investigation. Dozens of documents, testimonies, photos, medical reports. But none carried more weight than the image of a 12-year-old boy sitting on a courtroom bench saying, "They hit me." Mark and Linda Pearson were found guilty, not just of child abuse, but of fraud, coercion, and violating foster care protocols. Their sentence, 15 years. No early parole. The courtroom was silent when the gavel fell. No cheers, no dramatic applause. Just relief. Charlie sat beside Naomi Dawson, gripping Mr. Evans's hand. He didn't cry, not this time, but his shoulders relaxed, like a weight he'd carried his whole life finally slid off his back. Still, Victory wasn't without scars. The news picked up the story. Not front page, not prime time. But enough. Enough that Charlie walked into school the next day to stares. Some kids whispered. Others offered awkward pats on the back. One even said, "You're brave, dude," before jogging away embarrassed. Charlie smiled at that one, but later that night he broke down again, in Mr. Evans's kitchen, over spaghetti. "I don't know how to feel," he admitted. "I thought I'd feel safe, but now I just don't know what's next." Mr. Evans didn't pretend to have an answer. He just set the spoon down, sat across from him, and said, "You don't have to know. We'll figure it out. Together." That night, Charlie slept through the dark without waking, the first time in months. In therapy, he started opening up about things he never dared say before. How the closet wasn't just dark, but cold. How Linda used to turn music up loud so no one heard the screaming. How he counted steps at night. Not because of anxiety, but survival. Every story was a wound, but every telling was a stitch. Weeks passed. He started laughing again, sketching comics with Olivia, asking to help cook dinner. Naomi visited often, brought updates. More kids had come forward, some from past Pearson placements, some from other homes, inspired by Charlie. "You started something," she told him once. "Something big." He didn't feel like a hero, still didn't. But when he looked at the framed photo on Mr. Evans' bookshelf, the one of him holding his adoption certificate, smiling through tears, he thought, maybe I don't have to be a hero. Maybe I just had to survive. A year passed. One full turn of the season since that day in court. Since a trembling boy whispered 3 words that changed everything. "They hit me." Charlie never forgot it. But he also didn't let it define him. The bruises faded, the nightmares softened, and in their place, something else grew. Roots, laughter, belonging. Mr. Evans, now officially David to him, became more than just a foster parent. He became home. Their mornings were filled with clinking cereal bowls and mismatched socks. Their nights with movie marathons, math homework, and the occasional burnt grilled cheese. Ordinary chaos. But ordinary was everything. Olivia still waved to Charlie every day. Sometimes they'd sit under the big oak tree after school and talk about nothing in particular. Other times she'd just sit quietly beside him. No questions, just presence. Miss Turner helped him start a student comic strip in the school paper. Charlie's first story? A silent boy with a cape stitched from torn notebook pages, who finds his voice in the most unexpected place. It was titled, "The Day I Didn't Whisper." The story spread. Not viral, not sensational, just heart to heart. Letters came from other kids, other survivors. One read, "I watched your story. I didn't know someone else felt like me. I told my counselor. Thank you." Charlie stared at that letter for a long time, then pinned it above his desk. Naomi Dawson still checked in now and then, not out of obligation, but because she said he reminded her why she took the job in the first place. Sometimes she brought news, other kids rescued, other cases reopened, other courtroom silences, finally broken. Charlie never called himself brave. He just said, "I was tired of being afraid." But in a world where silence can be survival, his voice became a ripple, not loud, not showy, but powerful. Because the boy who once asked to sleep in a janitor's closet now stood on stages at school assemblies, telling kids that it's okay to ask for help. That fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And choosing to speak, even when it shakes your voice, is a kind of courage most people never understand. So if you're watching this right now, and you're holding a truth that's heavy in your chest, A fear that's louder than words. Just know you're not alone. Sometimes all it takes is 3 words, and one person willing to listen. If this story touched you, take a moment to think about all the children still suffering in silence, too scared to speak, too alone to be believed. Let Charlie's journey be a reminder that sometimes all it takes to change everything is 3 words, spoken with a heart that refuses to give up. Subscribe to KaYi for more stories of courage, justice, and love that refuses to be silenced. Because maybe the next story we tell will help another lost child find their way home.